Let's talk a little bit about E.T. This game has been heralded as one of the worst games ever made, if not the worst game ever made. And in this store, on any given day, someone will walk in here, see this, and say, "Dude, that's the worst game ever made. Did you hear it caused a crash in the industry?" Listen. Right? It's the game sound from the movie. It sounds good. And look at that. I mean, how many things are you going to see on the Atari 2600 that look as good as that opening screen? Most games don't even have an opening screen. The graphics are pretty good. I mean, there's nothing special going on here. But hey, I'm E.T. So the idea here is to kind of move around. There's the guy chasing me. I want to get away from him, obviously. Here's where people really complain about E.T. Oh, it's all about falling in holes. I keep falling in holes. You do. It's part of the game. And it is a design flaw. There's places in the game where you simply can't avoid getting around the holes. If I go up to the top of the screen and there's a hole at the bottom of the next one, I'm going to hit it. Now, eventually this guy's going to catch me. And when he does, he's going to take me to the screen. It's annoying. But you know what? You got to have a bad guy in the game or it's no fun at all, right? There he goes. Right? Doesn't look bad, doesn't sound bad. It's certainly playable, right? Now, E.T. didn't cause the industry to crash. Think about it. 1983, computers were becoming affordable. Now, instead of just buying an Atari 2600, I could buy an Atari 8-bit computer or a Commodore 64. And I could play games, and they looked better than the games that were coming out of the 2600 because that's part of the problem, if not the biggest problem. On the 2600, everybody was making video games. Quaker Oats was making video games. Parker Brothers, Avalon Hill, companies that had no real business or past experience. And while not all the games were bad, there was a lot of bad stuff. And then, finally, let's talk about this whole E.T. was so bad that they had to bury it in a landfill somewhere. Well, that just isn't true. I mean, Atari's not going to spend all that money to get these trucks to ship millions of games out to the landfills in New Mexico just to destroy them when they could just burn them in their backyard. So let's really talk about and look at the game. Tell me, is it the worst looking game? Is it the worst sounding game? Is it the worst playing game? Let me show you 10 that I think are much worse than E.T. The Tale of Two Footballs, right? We have a really old Atari football game, which I'm kind of hesitant to add to this list, but I got to show you something that is really bad by today's standards and certainly isn't better than E.T. And then another football. I love this, because they don't call it football in the U.S., they call it soccer, okay? This is real sports soccer in the U.S. Both of these footballs are pretty bad. Let's start with the original football game, shall we? First of all, this mess that you're seeing on the screen is only a two-player game. So I'm not going to get to play with a friend. I'm by myself, right? Ready? So we pick our plays, carefully selected. Uh-oh. He could go all the way! That's pretty much the way the game plays. I've given Atari a pass on this game because it was just an original game. But come on, this is the whole game. This versus E.T., what's better? Now let's take a look at that other football. Now this game was done pretty late in the Atari's history. They certainly had enough experience to program a decent soccer game. Here's what we get. This is what happens. You just take turns trying to catch up to the other guy before he gets his shot off. In this case, I'm going to lose. That's not fun. There's 3 guys on the screen. It's just running back and forth. It's not like real soccer, is it? Okay, here's another one for you. Glacier Patrol. Ooh, there's going to be snowballs and bad enemy ships, and I get to fire lasers at dropping ice blocks. So here we go. I got this, I don't know what he is on the bottom. I got a little ways to go here before we actually start. But I've got this cool laser. I think that's what that is. And the idea is to shoot these blocks that are coming down at me. And another thing that happens in this game, you're going to run into a lot of places where you can't jump over the ball. That's one. Another one where I might be standing here and that ball is going to come right out of that side. Case in point. Yeah, this is real fun. That's much better than E.T., wouldn't you say? Racquetball. Now this is by one of those companies that was kind of a newcomer to programming games, but they came pretty long after Atari was there. And games by Apollo in general are kind of considered crummy, but this one in particular is really crummy. Now here's where we got some issues. I am one of these two guys. That's going to take me a little while to figure out. But I think maybe the bigger problem is watch the ball and try to tell me which one is the ball and which one's the shadow and where am I supposed to be to hit it. If you can see this and figure it out, you're a better man or woman than I am. I'm done. Okay. If you've seen any digital press publications over the last 15 years, you already know what I've got to say about this game. The guy that helped me start digital press felt that this was the worst game ever made. And while I may or may not agree with him, this certainly is among the worst games ever made, and it's 1,000 games worse than E.T. Let's have a look at what makes Snake tick. Here you go. That's the graphics. This is the whole game screen. Never move off the screen. Nothing beyond this that you're going to see. It's fancy. So watch this gameplay. I basically control this guy here in the center. I think he's a guy. I can't move to the middle. I'm kind of restricted to the edges of this block. And I do have a weapon. And I just have to get in between these tiny little blocks and shoot these prehistoric beasts, is what they're called. Oh, there's one. That guy was a sitting duck. Notice the scoring system. I've got 3 kills, and I've got 3 points. It doesn't matter how fast they go. It doesn't matter how big they are. It's always a point. It doesn't matter if there's 3 of them. I only get credit for the one I killed, even though they all died. And now, this control is just horrible. I mean, I have to work my way in between these little blocks. So these are the typical types of scores that you're going to see. If you're excited by scoring 5 in a game, you've got issues bigger than E.T. Let's move on. Okay, here's another one of those rarities in the Atari system. It's a game by a company called Telesis, called Star Gunner. Now, this is one of those games that some people might actually like it. It's not a bad looking game, not a bad sounding game. I'm going to show you why it's not a better playing game, that's for sure. Now, I'm just wondering, am I really in any danger here? I mean, that guy's not doing anything at all. This guy's aim is horrible. I can move around a little bit, I guess eventually I'm going to get killed, but let's see how long it takes to get killed, shall we? He would have hit his own guy right there. That was close. I think you get the point.